There, I'm Lee Checkstad from Century 21 Canada, and welcome to the Real Estate Real Success Spotlight Series. I'm excited to introduce today Matt Glen, a sales representative from Century 21 Assurance Realty in Kelowna. Since starting with Century 21 in 2020, Matt has already achieved the prestigious CENTURION Award status. He's a strong advocate for technology and also co-hosts the Kelowna Real Estate Podcast. Today, Matt shares his invaluable advice for achieving business success. So, Matt, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you so much for the invite. I'm happy to be here.
And you are sort of like the multimedia expert, but really, your day job is real estate. How did you get into real estate?
My past career or my past life, I was a lineman. So I was a telephone lineman. I worked around the province, and what happened is I bought a couple of rental properties, and I realized working with my realtor then that real estate was for me. So I kind of put all my eggs in this basket, and now I'm an investor and an agent in Kelowna.
Awesome. Good for you. So you joined in 2020. So you've been at it a few years.
Yep.
What made you choose Century 21?
First, I like the branding. Like before I knew anything about how real estate brokerages worked or how the industry worked, I just always liked the Century 21 branding. And then as I got closer to getting my license, I went and interviewed all the brokerages in town and met all the managing brokers and the owners. And I really, what put it over the top for me was meeting Max and Shirley. Max is the owner, and Dean, but Dean wasn't the owner at the time. But I met Max Carbone and then our managing broker, Shirley Prisbel, and it just sold it for me. And then ever since I joined at the beginning of 2020, I haven't looked back. I love it. I love it at Century 21, and it's the place for me.
Well, we're very happy to have you. You have had a wonderful rise to the top in terms of your success. You were named Rookie of the Year at your local brokerage. What did you do to grow your career so quickly?
I started my career on Valentine's Day, on Valentine's Day 2020, which is, if you know, is a month before Armageddon hit, COVID hit. And so when I started my career, my goal was to go out and meet as many people as I could. Go out to parties, to events, in the public, just do that. And then a month in, that was all over. And so I went home and I sulked for a bit. And then I realized I'm not letting my career fizzle. It's not going to die in the stem. I'm going to be successful. So I started on my social media, and I started meeting people through other ways. And like before I did that, I had not an Instagram account. I had never taken a selfie, never done a video. And I was just like, this is obviously the way to do it. So I just jumped all in. I would door knock. I would knock on a door, stand 15 feet back, talk to people. I got a really good reception that way. Met some great clients. And that's why I got it started. It really was my mindset of, I am not going to allow myself to fail. Like this is happening to the whole world. It's not just me. I'm going to be successful. And it's worked out well since then.
That is the mindset of success. Tell me a little bit about door knocking, because that is one thing that a lot of agents say, I will do anything, but I won't do that.
So first thing I say is if it's just, I've had amazing success at it. I always find when you go to start door knocking, the first door is the hardest. The other ones after that are easy, right? I've door knocked a lot of doors. Nobody's ever yelled at me. I've had people shoo me away a few times, which is kind of just part of the business, but I've had a lot of success. I've toured a lot of houses. I've sold a lot of houses that way. And I find it a good way to meet people. I try not to be too overbearing. I'm just really there to introduce myself rather than sell their house. And it's worked well. Yeah.
Cool. Now you've also taken on the Kelowna Real Estate Podcast.
Yeah.
Why did you start it? And you've been going on over a year now. So how do you keep this going week after week?
So I started it with a friend of mine who's a mortgage broker in town, a successful mortgage broker, Taylor Atkinson, a friend of mine. And we actually were golfing one day and we're like, we were talking about real estate and we should record this and put it as a podcast. So we did. So that was kind of at the fall of the year before. So the beginning of 2023, in January, we started our podcast and we did it for fun. We were going to do a weekly episode. We just wanted to see how it do. We said we'd commit for a year, and it took off way more than we expected. So we kept it going, and it's been so much fun. It's opened the doorway for us to talk to all the real estate leaders in the community. We've had MLAs on, city councilors. We had the mayor booked. We have developers. It's just we're talking to people that we normally would never talk to and sharing it all with our audience. So the podcast has worked out very well, and it's been a lot of fun to have.
Promote it and grow your audience.
So a few different ways. Social media is the biggest one, probably, is well, the most intrinsic, I guess, for the podcast space, but also just meeting people when we go to events. I bring it up. A lot of people come to me now, and ever since we started this podcast, that recognize me and listen to the show, which is funny because you see numbers on a screen, but you don't really know the reach you're getting until people come to you. So that's happened. We kind of just, a lot of it's word of mouth, and the real estate sector in Kelowna is not massive, so it seemed to have reached a lot of the people so far and still growing.
Well, congratulations, because you're right. It's not a huge community in
Yeah,
Kelowna,
yeah,
but you do seem to have engaged it in a way that's really resonating with people. So
absolutely.
hats off to you for that. Is
Thank
it
you.
a main part of your marketing strategy? Is this podcast?
Uh no, my main marketing strategy is really referrals and my sphere. I grew up in the Okanagan. I know a lot of people here, so a lot of that, now that I'm a few years in, is that the podcast definitely helps. I have had listings and buys come directly from the podcast, but when I go into a listing presentation or I'm meeting a buyer, some of them have already heard the podcast and didn't really put two and two together until I got there. The ones that hadn't heard about it, I tell them about it, and it usually makes the deal for me. So I think it gives me a lot of clout in the community. Kind of makes me the knowledge expert just by default, basically. And it has definitely helped, but it hasn't been like a direct, I do an episode, get a call as list so far. I'm sure it will in the future, but that's not really why we started it. So yeah, it's kind of worked out pretty well.
A couple of minutes ago, you were mentioning your former job as a lineman.
Yeah.
How do you, this is obviously very different hours. How do
Yeah.
you balance, your family life and these hours being an entrepreneur and all that compared to probably what was a bit more of a structured life before?
Very much. So my past life, not only like I would work 7 till a lot of times 7, and also not in town. So I'd be traveling all over BC and Alberta. And it was really hard on my family. We hadn't had kids yet. So that was, thank God for that. And when I got into real estate, you realize that my motto, or the thing I always tell people, is I'm never working, but I'm always working. Right. So like when you love what you do, you're never really, it's not like being a lineman where you're at work, you're at work. When you're at, like, I go for lunches and we talk about projects that are shaping the city or like big moves in people's lives that you're working on. And in my past career, it was just not like that. So balancing now, my wife understands. She was my assistant for a couple of years until we had our son, and now she just does that. So she understands the business and she helps out, and she's really flexible with how I spend my time. But when I'm already used to not being here and working on the road, working as a real estate agent has actually been a breath of fresh air.
Good. That's good to hear.
Yeah.
You obviously started during a very, very difficult time. What advice would you give to a new realtor now who may be facing differences, but
Yeah.
challenges nonetheless? So maybe a market that isn't as frothy, it's a bit harder
Yeah.
to make the sale. What advice do you have for new realtors?
Well, the first two things are perseverance and patience, because people will buy. You just, like in real estate, you can pick your clients, or you can try and get your clients, but you don't pick. Even if you find a client that wants to buy, you have no idea when they're going to buy. You don't know. Even if they find a house, the seller might not want to move out for a few months. So you really don't have a lot of control over timelines as an agent. All you can do is fill the funnel. So the three things are persevere, be patient, and in the meantime, fill the funnel, fill the funnel, fill the funnel. That's the name of the game. So even I know that a lot of agents, as they start getting busier, they kind of fall off of that, because if you're working on 5 or 6 deals, you don't think that you need to work on the next year. But timing is everything. And you, like I said, you don't control the timing. So you're, even when you get the client, it's 3, 6, 9, 12 months out before you get paid. So you need to work on filling the funnel regardless of the situation in the market.
Goals for yourself. I mean, you've been really successful in the last 4 years. How do
Yeah.
you continue to set yourself up for success?
Honestly, I keep myself engaged, like things like the podcast and talking to people. I really rely on my sphere and referrals. I find in this market, it's competitive out there. So when you're going into a listing presentation where somebody else has referred you to be there, it really helps. So I never forget about those people, the people I've helped in the past and my friends, but also like just meeting as many people as you can and meeting people of like mind, which means joining groups where people are going to like you. So if you like hockey, join a hockey team, or if you like sport or running, join those teams, because those people generally are the same kind of people as you. And I just find that not only is it easier to get the client, but it's easier to be happy working with the client, because it can take a while. Sometimes if you work with a seller in this market, it could take 5 months, sometimes 6 months of working with this person. So if you like them and you have similar interests, it just, not only is it easier to get the client, it's easier to work with the client for that long.
Any other advice?
Honestly, right now is a tough time in the market. There's no doubt about it, right? Like, sales are not coming together. Even when you get an accepted offer, there's no guarantee those subjects are coming off. Like, every subject right now just seems to be a battle. So I think my advice really is like, persevere and be patient, and continuously fill that funnel, because it's what you do today is what pays you in the future. So it's more important now than ever to continue to do those things. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Matt.